Dyatlov Pass, a snow-choked wound in the Ural Mountains where 9 hikers decided to wrestle with the unknown and lost so hard that physics itself pretended not to see. It's 1959. You've got a group of young adventurers, bright-eyed, frostbitten, idealistic enough to think the cold can't hurt their friendship. They hike into the mountains. They set up camp. They write happy diary entries about snow and camaraderie. Then something happens, something so fundamentally wrong that it leaves claw marks on time itself. The tent is slashed open from the inside. That's not panic. That's desperation in capital letters. Some of them ran barefoot into minus 30 degrees Celsius weather. Others crawled, broken, as if running wasn't enough to escape whatever was whispering behind them. When they were found, their eyes were missing. One girl's tongue was gone. A few of them had radiation burns, as if the snow was glowing with guilt. The investigators blamed unknown compelling forces. You know it's bad when the Soviet Union, a government that could explain away anything with bureaucracy, just throws up its hands and writes unknown. Every theory feels like a fever dream. Avalanche, military testing, aliens, infrasound panic. My personal favorite? The mountain got tired of being quiet. Picture it, an ancient, indifferent god of rock and snow stirring awake, looking down at these ants with cameras and compasses, and deciding to remind them that they were temporary. Someone took a photo that night. A blurry, overexposed shot of something. Eyes glowing, a shape in the dark. People say it's nothing. But everything about Dyatlov Pass screams that nothing is exactly the point. Nothing is what's left after curiosity eats sanity. The hikers called the mountain Kolet cycle the dead mountain. They should have listened. Because sometimes a landscape doesn't just kill you, it edits you out of its story entirely. Type continue to get the next part of the script. Dyatlov Pass, a snow-choked wound in the Ural Mountains where 9 hikers decided to wrestle with the unknown and lost so hard that physics itself pretended not to see. It's 1959. You've got a group of young adventurers, bright-eyed, frostbitten, idealistic enough to think the cold can't hurt their friendship. They hike into the mountains. They set up camp. They write happy diary entries about snow and camaraderie. Then something happens, something so fundamentally wrong that it leaves claw marks on time itself. The tent is slashed open from the inside. That's not panic. That's desperation in capital letters. Some of them ran barefoot into minus 30 degrees Celsius weather. Others crawled broken, as if running wasn't enough to escape whatever was whispering behind them. When they were found, their eyes were missing. One girl's tongue was gone. A few of them had radiation burns, as if the snow was glowing with guilt. The investigators blamed unknown compelling forces. You know it's bad when the Soviet Union, a government that could explain away anything with bureaucracy, just throws up its hands and writes unknown. Every theory feels like a fever dream. Avalanche, military testing, aliens, infrasound panic. My personal favorite? The mountain got tired of being quiet. Picture it, an ancient, indifferent god of rock and snow stirring awake, looking down at these ants with cameras and compasses, and deciding to remind them that they were temporary. Someone took a photo that night. A blurry, overexposed shot of something. Eyes glowing, a shape in the dark. People say it's nothing. But everything about Dyatlov Pass screams that nothing is exactly the point. Nothing is what's left after curiosity eats sanity. The hikers call the mountain Kolet cycle the dead mountain. They should have listened. Because sometimes a landscape doesn't just kill you, it edits you out of its story entirely. Type continue to get the next part of the script. Bennington Triangle, Vermont's accidental black hole. A patch of forest where compasses spin, dogs refuse to bark, and people walk in smiling and vanish like punctuation marks at the end of unfinished sentences. Between 1945 and 1950, at least 5 people disappeared within a 200 square mile area. It sounds like folklore, but the records of their names, dates, half-buried hope. There's Mid-Eye Rivers, a seasoned guide who walked into trees one day and became a rumor. Paula Weldon, a college student who followed a trail that refused to loop back. James Tedford, who boarded a bus and somehow disappeared between stops. Paul Jepson, 8 years old, wearing a bright red coat, like a bullseye for fate. Frida Langer, who vanished mid-hike and was later found dead in the exact spot that had already been searched dozens of times. It's as if the forest itself was playing chess with reality and winning. People love explanations. Magnetic anomalies, serial killers, interdimensional rifts. Theories multiply like mushrooms after rain. But none of them explain the feeling you get when you step into those woods, the low electric hum, the sense that the air is waiting for something. Hunters talk about hearing their own names whispered in wrong voices. Campers swear they've seen light move sideways. Maybe the forest folds. Maybe space gets lazy and overlaps. You take one step too far and accidentally walk off the page. I don't think these people died in the usual sense. I think they were rewritten. Bennington isn't about death. It's about erasure, the kind of cosmic administrative error where the world forgets you existed. And the name itself, Triangle. Funny how we always blame geometry. Bermuda, Bennington, Bridgewater. All triangles, all places where lines cross and refuse to uncross. Maybe that's what the universe looks like up close, a mess of intersecting lines, and with a static caught between them. If you ever visit, bring a mirror, because when you disappear there, maybe that's the last thing you'll see. Your reflection realizing it's about to get tenure in another dimension. Type continue to get the next part of the script. Lake Anjikuni, a place where a whole village just decided to stop existing. Imagine trudging to the snow, tired, hungry, the northern lights overhead like the sky forgot its medication, and then you see it, a lakeside settlement, fires still burning, doors swinging open, soup still simmering in a pot. You step inside, expecting laughter, stories, the sound of life, but there's only quiet, the kind that presses against your ribs from the inside. In 1930, Trapper Joe LaBelle stumbled into that silence and never really crawled out. He found everything but people. Clothes hung to dry. Rifles leaned against walls. Sleds lined up, food half-eaten. Even the dogs, chained, starved, dead. And not just dead, frozen mid-howl, like they'd been caught between breaths when the world's battery ran out. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police came to investigate and promptly filed the whole thing under nope. They found no footprints leading out, no signs of struggle. Just the impression that someone had hit delete on an entire population. Of course, the story sprouted. Aliens, spirits, mass migration, temporal anomalies. But none of those theories explain the most haunting part, the warmth. Fire still burning when they arrived. The sense that everyone had left only minutes before, like they'd seen something all at once and followed it. Sometimes I imagine it as a sound, a low, impossible frequency that hums beneath the aurora until every human brain in range just gets up and walks into the cold. No fear, no hesitation, just a realization that the sky is calling, and it's rude not to answer. There's something poetic about it, isn't there? A collective surrender to mystery. Maybe they weren't taken. Maybe they were invited. Maybe they finally got tired of pretending the world made sense and decided to join the parts that don't. When people talk about the Lake Anjikuni disappearance, they always focus on where they went. But the real question is why we're still here, staring at the empty fires, pretending we're not curious about what they saw. Type continue to get the next part of the script. Flannan Isles Lighthouse, a monument to the ocean's favorite party trick, taking people and leaving nothing but questions. December 1900. 3 lighthouse keepers vanish from an island so small it barely counts as geography. The relief crew arrives and finds a gate closed, the beds unmade, the clock stopped, and a meal half-eaten like someone got up mid-bite and walked into a bad idea. The logbook entries start normal and end biblical. Storms continue. Seas rough. Men praying. The storm has passed. The sea is calm. God is over all. If that line doesn't crawl down your spine and whisper liar, you haven't been listening. There were no storms. The weather reports from the mainland said the skies were clear. So what exactly were they seeing? What kind of storm happens only in your head? Some say a rogue wave swallowed them whole. Others blame madness, murder, or even sea monsters. But I think the ocean just wanted conversation. Imagine weeks of silence. Only wind, water, and 3 men talking to their own echoes. Eventually, you'd start hearing replies. You'd start to believe the horizon was blinking back at you. I like to picture one of them, maybe Donald, the youngest, standing outside in the fog, squinting at something moving just beyond visibility. Maybe it looked like a man. Maybe it looked like himself. And when the others came to check, the fog took them too, polite as a host, showing guests to their seats. When the investigators arrived, they found a single oilskin coat still hanging on its hook, untouched. Why does that detail hurt so much? Because it means someone left knowing they wouldn't need it. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse is less a mystery and more a love letter from the sea, signed in absence, sealed with salt. The island still stands, wind still howling through its empty corridors, as if rehearsing the same 3 names over and over Thomas, James, Donald, echoes that refuse to die because the ocean hasn't finished its sentence yet. Type continue to get the next part of the script. Hoya Baciu Forest, Romania's Bermuda Triangle. Except this triangle hums, breathes, and watches you from inside your own skull. You step inside and the trees look wrong. Not, ooh, nature's spooky wrong. I mean psychologically misaligned wrong. They twist like they're trying to spell a curse in cursive. The branches don't just reach out, they gesture, like they're gossiping about you in a language made of bark creaks and insect clicks. Phones die, compasses spin. GPS laughs in binary and quits. There's this one clearing, a perfect circle, where nothing grows. No trees, no moss, no sound. Just bare earth like a crop circle carved by insomnia. Scientists took soil samples and said the ground wasn't biologically hostile. Yeah, then why does it feel like standing on an unplugged heartbeat? The first time someone went missing here, it was a shepherd and his 200 sheep. Both gone. No remains, no bleats, no footprints. Just subtraction. Since then, hikers vanish, lights appear where they shouldn't, and locals whisper that you can hear your name call from somewhere you haven't been yet. In the 60s, a UFO supposedly hovered over the forest and turned the whole sky into a fever dream. Photos exist, grainy off-center, exactly the kind of evidence reality allows. Since then, people who visit report burns, nausea, nosebleeds, and in one case, memory loss so bad a woman forgot her entire identity for days. But here's the thing. Maybe Hoya Baciu isn't haunted. Maybe it's alive. Maybe it doesn't kill you. It edits you. You enter, and the forest scans you like corrupted software, decides what parts of you are unnecessary, and deletes them. You start hearing whispers, maybe your own thoughts echoing back with extra syllables. You see lights flicker that don't illuminate anything. And just when you think you're lost, the forest shows you a clearing that wasn't there before, a place that smells faintly like ozone and deja vu. You step in, and the world exhales. People say the forest is cursed. I think it's tired. Tired of humans mapping it, naming it, explaining it. So every once in a while, it takes someone apart, disassembles them into fog and rumor, and plants their silence where roots should be. Hoya Baciu doesn't want to be solved. It wants to be believed. Type continue to get the next part of the script. Let's rewind to the Arctic, where the air itself bites. But this time, not the lake, the village, because repetition is horror's favorite trick. The Inuit settlement near Lake Anjikuni didn't just vanish. It evaporated from narrative. Joe LaBelle, the trapper who found it, walked in expecting human noise, the clatter of life. Instead, he found an entire community pause mid-sentence. Fires still flickering. Fish half-cooked. A rifle propped neatly by the door as if its owner had stepped out for a moment and forgot to come back for eternity. It's that mid-action detail that breaks the brain, because if they fled, there'd be chaos. If they died, there'd be evidence. But this was stillness, absolute, coordinated stillness. Like time itself took a breath and never exhaled. RCMP reports tried to smother it with logic, probably migrated. Sure, man, everyone just packed up simultaneously, leaving food, dogs, and fire burning. Maybe they all carpooled on a hallucination. And those dogs, oh, the dogs, they didn't run. They didn't fight. They stayed chained, loyal even to abandonment, until starvation turned them into statues of frost. That's not migration. That's devotion weaponized by cosmic indifference. Theories? Pick your poison. Alien abduction, dimensional slip, spiritual exodus, government cover-up. My favorite. They followed something beautiful. A sound maybe beneath the ice, something harmonic, impossible, that made the human brain think. That's where I belong. I imagine one woman looking at her husband as he freezes mid-motion, realizing it's not fear, but peace. Then she smiles, drops the ladle, and steps outside. The snow is glowing faintly. The stars are reflected in the lake, but wrong. Like the constellations are rearranging to make room for them. What if the disappearance wasn't tragedy, but transcendence? Maybe the villagers didn't die. They were promoted. Lake Anjikuni is the story of obedience to the unknown, of hearing the void hum and deciding, for once, to listen. Type continue to get the next part of the script. Roanoke Colony, America's first ghost story, camouflages history. It's 1587. You're one of 115 English settlers who cross an ocean to start fresh, to escape debt and rot and the constant sound of London coughing. You build houses, plant crops, pretend to be brave. The wilderness hums with bugs and warnings. And then one day, you realize you're very alone. John White sails back to England for supplies, promising he'll return quickly. He doesn't. It takes 3 years. When he finally makes it back, he finds a settlement carved out of existence. The palisade is intact, houses dismantled neatly. No chaos, no blood. Just a single word carved into a post. Croton. Theories spawn like mold. Assimilation with local tribes. Starvation. Disease. Attack. But that word, God, that word, feels less like a clue and more like a spell. Try whispering it. Croton. It tastes old. It sounds like the moment before a thunderclap. Some people think the colonists joined a nearby tribe and blended in. Others believe something older claimed them, something the natives already knew to fear. The Algonquian folklore speaks of the Wendigo, a spirit of hunger and winter, devouring men who stray too far into greed. What if Roanoke wasn't conquered but consumed? Imagine the colony's final night. The sound of drums from the woods, not hostile, not welcoming, just present. One by one, settlers step outside, drawn like moths to a bonfire that doesn't burn, only swallows light. They vanish into the treeline. The next morning, the sand remembers a word that means gone but not forgotten. History textbooks make it sound sterile. The lost colony. But Roanoke feels alive, like an infection in time that never healed. Every few years, someone finds artifacts, DNA traces, hints of survival. It's always enough to keep the question open. Maybe the settlers didn't disappear. Maybe we did. Maybe the moment they stepped into the forest, the world blinked, and we ended up on the wrong side of the timeline. That's why nothing fits. That's why Croton still sounds like an invitation. Type continue to get the next part of the script. The Devil's Kettle. A hole in Minnesota that eats half a river and gives nothing back. On the Brule River, the water splits in two. One side tumbles downstream like a normal waterfall. The other side plunges into a dark, perfectly circular hole and vanishes. No one knows where it goes. No one. Scientists drop dye, ping pong balls, GPS trackers. All of it disappeared, like the earth swallowed them and burped out silence. Locals say the hole is bottomless. Others call it portal. I call it nature's middle finger to human curiosity. Because every time we try to understand it, it laughs in fluid dynamics. There's a rhythm to the falls, a roar that sounds almost like breathing. If you listen too long, it syncs with your pulse until you start thinking, what if I drop something important in there? Your phone, your wallet, your name. And then that thought turns into another. What if I followed it? There are stories, of course. The woman who leaned too far and never resurfaced. The man who went missing upstream, and search teams found no trace, no clothing, no body, not even a ripple. The kettle doesn't just take, it erases. You stand near it, and there's this instinctive vertigo, not fear falling, but the wanting to, because something about that endless sound feels like a promise. Maybe the kettle isn't a hole at all. Maybe it's an opening, a throat. The Ojibwe legends tell of water spirits, manitous, who live in lakes and rivers, hungry for the reckless. Maybe this is their front door. Maybe we're the trespassers, poking holes in myths that don't want to be touched. I like to think the Devil's Kettle isn't hiding where the water goes. It's hiding why the water leaves. Because maybe, just maybe, it's tired of being part of our planet. Maybe it found a better one. Type continue to get the next part of the script. The Paris Catacombs. 200 miles of bone-lined tunnels. Like the city built a nervous system out of skeletons and forgot to turn the lights back on. You descend into the underworld under a sign that politely warns you. A rite. Say, ICIL Empire de la Mort. Stop. You are entering the Empire of the Dead. Most people treat it like a tourist trap. Snapping selfies beside centuries of femurs arranged like interior design choices. But some go deeper. They always go deeper. Underneath the mapped sections lies a labyrinth that the living were never meant to navigate. Thousands of uncharted passages. No light. No echoes. Just bone dust, so thick it feels like breathing the memories of the dead. And people still go there. Urban explorers. Film students. The lost, the curious, the arrogant. The footage always looks the same. Shaky flashlight beams, nervous laughter, then silence. Once, someone found a video camera deep in the tunnels. The tape showed a man running, panting, turning corners, dropping the light, and then nothing. The camera kept rolling until the battery died. No one ever identified him. Some say there are whole communities down there, cataphiles who live among the remains, throwing raves between ossuaries, painting murals for ghosts. Others whisper about something worse, that the tunnels themselves shift, that the layout changes while you're inside, that the catacombs remember everyone who trespasses and rearrange accordingly. There's a theory I like, the resonance hypothesis. It says the bones aren't just dead matter, they're storage. Every fear, every prayer, every dying breath vibrates down here like data, looping endlessly. So when you walk through the tunnels, you're basically trespassing inside other people's panic. That's why your flashlight flickers. That's why you keep hearing someone behind you when you're alone. You think you can handle it, that you'll just retrace your steps. But footsteps don't echo right underground. Sound bends. Space lies. Eventually, you start whispering to the bones just to hear your own voice. That's when you realize it's whispering back. But not in French. Not in any language you've ever known. The catacombs don't kill you. They let you wander until you stop being interesting. Then they absorb you. One more voice in the hum. Type continue to get the next part of the script, the Alaska Triangle, where logic goes to freeze and vanish. Covering a stretch between Anchorage, Juneau, and Barrow, it's a vortex of disappearances. Planes, hikers, whole expeditions. Since the 1970s, over 16,000 people have vanished here without a trace. That's not folklore. That's statistics politely screaming. Pilots report compass malfunctions, static-filled radios, hallucinations of lights moving in impossible patterns. Some call it geomagnetic anomalies. Others say it's just Alaska being Alaska, big, cold, merciless. But I think it's something else. I think the triangle is the Earth dreaming, and sometimes we walk into its sleep and forget how to wake up. The Tlingit people have older explanations, ancient ones. They speak of the Kushtaka, shape-shifting otter demons that mimic human voices to lure you into the wilderness. You hear your friend calling for help. Follow the sound, and the snow closes over you like a sigh. Some never even scream. They just walk willingly. There's something about the silence there. It's not empty. It's predatory. You can almost hear it breathing between the gusts of wind. Search teams find abandoned campsites where the firewood's still stacked neatly, gear untouched, snow undisturbed. Like the people simply stepped out of existence. Planes vanished too. Entire aircraft. In 1972, House Majority Leader Hale Boggs' plane disappeared en route to Juneau. The U.S. government launched one of the largest search operations in history. Nothing. Not even a bolt. How do you lose an airplane in the sky? You don't. The sky takes it. And here's where it gets fun. Alaska sits on the same latitude as other window areas around the world. The Bermuda Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle. Ley lines intersecting like veins in a divine experiment. Maybe the world's surface isn't flat or round. It's frayed. And these triangles are where the edges unravel. People love to ask, where do they go? I think the better question is, what if they arrive somewhere else? Somewhere just close enough to ours that sometimes the snow hums with their voices. Somewhere where compasses point to you instead of north. The Alaska Triangle doesn't need monsters. It is one, a geometric predator disguised as landscape, feeding on our obsession with knowing. Because mystery isn't the absence of answers. It's the proof that we never deserved them in the first place. When you stand out there at night, the aurora rippling like the sky's nervous system, you can almost feel it. The pull, the whisper, the invitation. And if you listen long enough, your name starts to sound like coordinates.